That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Coming Home in the Dark, the directorial debut of James Ashcroft. It's a film from New Zealand, which premiered in the midnight section of the 2021 Sundance Film Festival.
You said directorial debut?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Done a bunch of shorts. Yeah, actually we'll obviously get into it, but for a first film, it's impressive.
Okay, the basic story is set in modern time, a family of four, mom, dad, and then two teenage sons, are on like a day trip to the Outback. Is the Outback in New Zealand, or I don't know. They're driving off to the middle of like the woods. It's not even the woods. What do you call that area? It's like the Outback. Like it's just like mountains but no trees. What? The prairie? Does New Zealand have a prairie?
They have, God, they have taken a vacation in some isolated area.
You don't know either.
I don't know. But
they're in like an isolated area. They go for like a day trip, and they just start wandering into this isolated like
ravine.
Ravine and canyon, whatever area, for just like a little picnic. And while they're hanging out, it's daytime. These two men approach them who look like nothing but trouble. Mm-hmm. And they are nothing but trouble. These two men,
named Tubbs and Mandrake.
Tubbs and Mandrake. Tubbs is like a Richard Ramirez lookalike, played by
Matthias Luafutu.
And then Mandrake is
Daniel Gillies,
who I know from something.
Oh, I don't know what you know him from.
He's in something. Vampire Diaries, I think.
I haven't watched that.
These two fools approach this family and rob them, and then kill the two teenage boys right away.
Yeah, almost immediately.
Like immediately. Mm-hmm. And then kidnap them. Mm-hmm. So it begs the question, why are they kidnapping them? We find out, so they kidnap the mom and the dad. We find out that...
Well, it's notable that he's the stepdad, too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What does that play into it?
Because she doesn't know his past.
Okay. I mean, you could be married. I mean, well, okay.
Hoaggie and Jill are their names, by the way.
Hoaggie, the reason that these two men, because they have targeted these two and kidnapped them, is because Hoaggie used to work at a school back in the day.
In 1988.
Yeah, because now he's like a college professor or something. But back in the day, he used to work at this school for boys. And boys were being abused at the school. Sexually, physically, emotionally. And Mandrake and Tubbs were students at that school. So they explained that while they were there, they witnessed Hoaggie, like, witnessing the abuse but not doing anything about it.
Basically. That's the claim that's made.
So their goal was to take Hoaggie back to the school and presumably kill him. However... So by the time they get Hoaggie back to the school, the mom, what's her name, Jill?
Jill, played by Miriama McDowell.
Who I think looks like if you mix Zoe Chow and Kamala Harris. And then I think Hoaggie looks like Steve Bannon. But
yeah, I thought that too.
When you...
Erik Thomson, who's actually in quite a bit of stuff.
So as they're driving from like the camping site to the school, Jill like jumps out of this moving Range Rover and like falls down a ravine into a river. So we don't know if she survives, but that's the last we see of her. So Tubbs and Mandrake get Hoaggie back to this school, and Hoaggie's able to get the upper hand on Mandrake and bash his head in.
But not...
Nearly to death when Tubbs appears, because he was wandering off doing God knows what. He shoots his buddy to like put him out of his misery, and then explains to Hoaggie like, I hate being here, and walks away. Mm-hmm. Hoaggie was shot, but I don't believe fatally, because he makes it to morning. The end.
There you go. So
I feel like this film was trying to be like one of those like moral dilemma type, like who are we really rooting for?
Sure, of course. To me, it was basically trying to be commentary on the nastiness of karma sometimes.
Okay, what worked for me? I think all of the actors did a fine job. I liked how the film looked. The first 20 to 30 minutes started off really well.
Yeah, because it's one of those intense anxiety.
Tense.
Yeah.
Because when these two fools walked up on this family in the middle of the outback, wherever they were, like I knew there was trouble and it was eerie. And then when they shot the two teenage boys right away, that was shocking to me.
It's shocking because what that does is establishes very early on the point of no return has been passed. Because what usually keeps people together and obeying the commands of their captors is that they're going to make it through this in one piece.
But where it fell apart for me a little bit, well, the story falls apart. The tension and the film was a fun little ride, literally, because we were just sitting there thinking like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this. You need to jump out of the car. So those types of stories are fun, right? Because they're interactive. But I think the actual mechanism of having these two men kidnap, they kill the boys, then kidnap the two. Obviously, there's something more going on. And to me, it was obvious right away that...
But it's obvious, but it's also, there's a level of ambiguity because we don't know that these boys, these young men were there at the same time as Hoaggie.
But we know that, like, most likely Hoaggie probably abused some boys.
Probably.
And these boys are probably those boys.
Sure.
So I think knowing that guessing that so early on was kind of like...
But we're putting on just how much they know, because the line that he says to him is that we're all the same to you and you're all the same to us.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of the message that it is.
Sure.
About our lack of humanity and empathy because we treat people as things and not humans. But there's we get the obligatory gas station in the middle of nowhere where the poor attendant, of course, gets killed because someone's trying to ask for help.
But during that gas station scene, Hoaggie says, I have to go to the bathroom. And while he's in there, he writes like a message on the toilet seat, like, please call the police. He also steals he's somehow able to get a screw that he uses to puncture the tire of the car he's being kidnapped.
No, I thought he just unscrewed the air thing. Because there's no way you could puncture a tire like that. I thought he just unscrewed the air.
No, he put the screw in
I guess I
there.
missed that, I thought.
Yeah. And he did that so that eventually the tire would pop.
Could you do that so easily?
Maybe in a regular tire. Maybe not a run flat, but because run flats have reinforced sidewalls. But
sure. Anyway,
I don't drive on regular common tires, so I don't know what they do. But anyway, the so there's that scene. There's
briefly after Jill disappears from the narrative, Hoaggie gets away. And there's some kid whipping, what are those called?
Doing donuts?
Doing donuts in some abandoned rural area, and he tries to get help, and they just say get away from us.
Yeah, Hoaggie approaches he's able to escape from Mandrake and Tubbs and approaches these teenagers driving around, and they don't want to help him, and Mandrake convinces them the guy that you're in the car with you is a bad guy, let him out. And these kids push Hoaggie out of the car, but then Mandrake ends up killing all the kids and taking Hoaggie.
But then again, that's just this circle of karma. Sure. Nobody's helpful towards one another.
My biggest issue with the story is when there's this scene, the climax is Mandrake explaining to Hoaggie why I'm doing this to you, and he tells this long drawn out story about a boy who was at this school that Hoaggie worked in back in 1988, who tattooed himself with a swastika on his forearm. Mm-hmm. And he goes into great detail about how he did it and where he placed it on the fucking anterior portion of his forearm. And that the school, teachers, took something like Brillo pad and basically scrubbed the tattoo off the boy. And of course, it's all building up to us thinking Hoaggie's going to admit that he sexually assaulted some boy or whatever, but we find out that no, he was just there witnessing it and didn't do anything. So finally, Hoaggie says I'm sorry I allowed that to happen to you, Mandrake. And then Mandrake says, that wasn't me. That took me all the way out. So you just kidnapped this man, killed his two stepsons, presumably killed this wife after she jumped out of that car, and you're about to kill him over some boy getting his forearm scrubbed?
Again, I think they were trying to keep it ambiguous and keep this in the realm of a conversation piece. But the thing is, when you start making explanations, that's when we start rationalizing and taking away from the anxiety and dread of the scenario.
But if the purpose of the story is to be one of these moral dilemma situations, the scales are so imbalanced because
Well, even Jill comments like doing something. There's a difference between doing something and witnessing something.
Right.
But they live on the same street.
Right. But we've already established that Tubbs and Mandrake are maniacs.
Yeah.
Right? So already the scale is not in their favor. Then, like, they're basically, because they do say, we're all the same to you, you're all the same to us. Like, we're trying to get, like, enact vengeance on those who suffered at the hands of people like you. Because they also mentioned that they kidnapped someone else prior to Hoaggie, which we have to presume was, like, another staff member at this school. I just don't think the stakes were high enough for Tubbs and Mandrake. Like, they needed to be sexually abused themselves or something. Like, there needed to be more than just like, oh, your buddy got his arm scraped.
I think there was more that
Well, there is more because Hoaggie mentions like, oh, Mr. Smith, and they're like, oh, that pedophile, like. So yeah, there was more going on, but we don't know that more happened to Tubbs and Mandrake. So I think that I needed to feel like these guys were hurt.
Sure.
And they are trying to get vengeance on the man who hurt them.
But
it's so indirect that it just feels like these are maniacs. Mm-hmm. And that's also a story, right? Most killers in movies like this are just like randomly killing people, senseless killings. So it's not that cannot be a story.
Well, if you think about this as kind of a kissing cousin or something like Haneke's Funny Games.
Right.
What's terrifying about that movie is about the randomness of it. And about wheedling your way into people's good graces through being socially appropriate.
My final note about this film was, this is why I don't leave the city. I'll stay my ass in air conditioning and Wi-Fi.
Well, yeah, I don't think camping's very fun either. So.
No. What would you give this film?
Again, like technically, performance-wise, it's got everything there. I can't complain about any of those people, but when you pick apart the narrative, it does unravel. I would give it 2.5 out of 5.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Thank you.
Bye.